Introduction to the Wonderful Adventures of Phra The Phoenician by Edwin Lester Arnold. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Introduction by Sir Edwin Arnold, KCIE. In the garden of my Japanese home in Tokyo, I have just perused the last sheets of my son's philosophical and historical romance, Phra The Phoenician. Among other scenes, I might be led to analyse, to criticise, perhaps a little to argue about the singular hypothesis on which he builds his story. Here, with a Buddhist temple at my gate, and with Japanese Buddhists around me, nothing seems more natural than that an author, sufficiently gifted with imagination and study, should follow his hero beyond the narrow limits of one little existence, down the chain of many lives, taken up link by link after each long interval of rest and reward in the paradise of Jo-Do. I have read several chapters to my Asiatic friends, and they say, "Oh yes, it is Ingwa, it is Karma." That is all quite true. We also have lived many times, and shall live many times more on this earth. One of them opens the shoji to let a purple and silver butterfly escape into the sunshine. She thinks some day it will thank her, perhaps 1,000,000 years hence. Moreover, here is a passage which I lately noted, suggestive enough to serve as preface, even by itself, to the present book. Commenting on a line in my Song Celestial, the writer thus remarks: "The human soul should therefore be regarded as already in the present life connected at the same time with two worlds, of which, so far as it is confined to personal unity to a body, the material only is clearly felt. It is therefore as good as proved, or, to be diffuse, it could easily be proved, or, better still, it will hereafter be proved, I know not where or when, that the human soul, even in this life, stands in indissoluble community with all immaterial natures of the spirit world, that it mutually acts upon them and receives from them impressions, of which, however, as man it is unconscious, as long as all goes well. It is, therefore, truly one and the same subject, which belongs at the same time to the visible and to the invisible world, but not just the same person, since the representations of the one world, by reason of its different quality, are not associated with ideas of the other, and therefore what I think as spirit is not remembered by me as man. I, myself, have consequently taken the stupendous postulates of Phra's narrative with equanimity, if not acceptance, and derived from it a pleasure and entertainment too great to express, since the critic, in this case, is a well-pleased father. The author of Phra has claimed for romance the ancient licence accorded to poetry and painting, pictoribus atque poetis, quid libit audendi semper fuit aqua potestas. He has supposed a young Phoenician merchant, full of the love of adventure and endowed with a large and observant, if very mystic philosophy, such as would serve for no bad standpoint whence to witness the rise and fall of religions and peoples. The adventurer sets out for the Tin Islands, or Cassiterides, at a date before the Roman conquest of England. He dies and lives anew many times, but preserves his personal identity under the garb of half a dozen transmigrations. And yet, while renewing in each existence the characteristic passions and sentiments which constitute his individuality and preserve the unity of the narrative, the author seems to me to have adapted him to varying times and places with a vraisemblance and absence of effort which are extremely effective. A Briton in British days, the slave consort of his Druid wife, he passes by daring but convenient inventiveness into the person of a centurion in the household of a noble Roman lady who illustrates in her surroundings the luxurious vices of the latter empire with some relic still of the older republican virtues. Hence he glides again into oblivion, yet wakes from the mystical slumber in time to take part in King Harold's gallant but fatal stand against the Normans. He enjoys the repose as a Saxon thane which the policy of the conqueror granted to the vanquished, but after some startling adventures in the vast oak woods of the South Kingdom is rudely ousted from his homestead by the foreigners, and in a neighbouring monastery sinks into secular forgetfulness once more of wife and children, lands and life. On the return of consciousness he finds himself enshrined as a saint, thanks to the strange physical phenomena of his suspended animation, and learns from the abbot that he has lain there in the odour of sanctity, according to indisputable church records, during 300 years. He wanders off again, finding everything new and strange, and becomes an English knight under King Edward III. He is followed to Crécy by a damsel who from act to act of his long life drama similarly renews an existence linked with his own, and who constantly seeks his love. She wears the armour of a brother knight, and on the field of battle she sacrifices her life for his. Yet once more the long spell of sleep which is not death brings this much wandering Phra to the reign of Queen Elizabeth, and it is there, after many and strange vicissitudes, he writes his experiences, and the curtain finally falls over the last passage of this remarkable record. Such briefly is the framework of a creation which, while it has certainly proved to me extremely seductive as a story, is full, I think, of philosophical suggestiveness. As long as men count mournfully the years of that human life which M. Renan has declared to be so ridiculously short, so long their fancies will hover about the possibility of an elixir vitae, of splendidly extended spans like those ascribed to the old patriarchs, and meditate with fascination on the mystical doctrines of Buddhism and the Vedantas. In such a spirit the Egyptians wrapped their dead in careful fashion, after filling the body with preservatives. And if ancient tombs have the 7 sleepers of the Koran, the Danish king who dozes under the castle of Elsinore, and our own undying King Arthur, do we not go to see Rip Van Winkle at the play, and is not hibernation one among the problems of modern science which whispers that we might, if we liked, indefinitely adjourn the waste of corporeal tissue, and spread our 70 or 80 years over ever so many centuries? But to be charming, an author is not obliged to be credible, or what would become of the Arabian Nights, of Gulliver, of the best books in the library? Personally, I admire and I like Phra enormously, and being asked to pen these few lines by way of introduction, I counsel everybody to read it, forgetting who it is that respectfully offers this advice until the end of the book, when I shall be no longer afraid if they remember. Tokyo, Japan, April 14th, 1890. End of introduction.